is a interface. Google says that interface is an abstract type that is used to describe a behavior that a class implement. Okay, pretty straightforward. So in this video we will be taking a look at what an interface is. Not a real, not those animal interface and cats and dog implementation of animal interface, not that, actual real coding world example of what an interface is. So I will quickly create a so I'll say let's say I have one application. So I'll take one example. I will take one example. Let's say I have an application which is currently using MySQL as a database, and in future I want to support uh, Postgres, I want to support Oracle DB, whatever. So but right now I am just using MySQL database client, which is any library that I can use, so that I am using. So what I can do is rather create an interface for a database client and implement n number of classes for those interfaces. These classes can be MySQL client, can be Postgres client, can be Oracle client. Why to create an interface? Let's quickly check out. So I'll create a I database client class. This is actually an interface. So I create a interface I database client. Usually we start the interface name with I. It's just a convention. So my database client will support some set of functions. Let's say fetch all rows. So this will take in a query param, and this will return list of data type, whatever data type that I want to map this query result to. Okay, the second would be fetch a row, a single row. Okay, so this will also take in a query, and this will return just a single row. Okay, what else? I can create an update row function also, wherein I pass in some query, and this uh, does not, let's say it returns boolean. So this is for all the inserts and update queries. This is for all the get related queries. So I think with all these three functions I should be able to access moreover anything from my database client, right? So now I can create a MySQL implementation for this. So MySQL client, which is implementing I database client, and we can implement all the methods here. So this is my MySQL implementation. This now inside the implementation I can do whatever I want. I can create a some MySQL library that is already there, and then that I can use to query, fetch all rows, map the query result to this data type, and then return list of this. So all this implementation I can write over here. But you see the uh, like by creating an interface I just know that there are three functions that I can use for any client. So I can also create a PG client for this. So PG client, this is the PG client which also has these three functions implemented, and I can have my own implementation here for PG client. Now how I can use this in places, let's say I have a user repository. Okay, so my user repository will have one function. Let's say get user by ID. This takes in a user ID of type int, and it returns me a user. Let's say I have a query. I cannot write a query. Come on. So my query is select star from users where uh, id equal to the user id that I'm passing. Okay, so this is fetch user by id. Now I'll quickly create a user DTO where id is of type int, user can have a name of type string, user can have a profile image of type string. This is s3 link something. Then I can simply return a database client. So I can actually inject any DB client that I want to use. Let's say I want to use PG client, so I can use PG client. Why? Because maybe this user table is inside my Postgres, so I will use a PG client here. So I can simply say PG client dot fetch row, pass in the query, pass in the data type, object to map this, and return me a list, or sorry, a user. That's it. So this is how I have created a DB client, and I'm for sure I know that only these three functions are implemented. Only these three functions I have to use at any time. Let's say I have one more table. Let's say um, get employee. Okay, so this is employee table, and this table I have in let's say my MySQL. So I'll say MySQL, and I can use MySQL client here. So you see the obviously I can use a employee data structure, sorry, data type here. So you see, just by using a interface and creating multiple implementation of interface makes using anything very simple. I can simply use whichever client, whichever class I want to use, same function, same set of function. And the implementation can be different. So this is how you can use an interface and you can clean up your code, wherein you might be using some PG client. In some places you might be using MySQL client, some places you can be using something else. Just create an interface, create multiple implementations of this. Now see, it is very simple. Now if I want to create one more function, let's say what else, fetch using field. So I pass in a query, I pass in a field of type string, and this fetch me something. Pass in a data type, and this fetch me the data. Now I can simply create an implementation of this here. I can create implementation of same thing here also, and that's it. I'm done. I just need to add implementation, and all over the code I can simply start using this. I can simply say pg client dot fetch using file. So actually this should not be file, this should be fetch using field. Why did I type file? Yes, fetch using field. So anywhere I want to use this, I can simply create multiple simply create a function and simply extend this, sorry, implement the client and simply use it. See how simple it is to create an interface and then use it. So I think you got the basic definition of what an interface is and how you can possibly create, possibly implement this and use this in your code, and this makes your code looks very simple, very straightforward, very clean. Okay, so that's all from my side. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.